heart of the desolate countryside stood Blackwood Manor, an ancient, sprawling estate shrouded in a perpetual mist that seemed to swallow all sound and light. The villagers spoke of the manor in hushed tones, their faces paling at the mere mention of its name. Tales of unspeakable horrors and restless spirits had circulated for generations, but no one had dared to venture near it for decades. It was a cold, moonless night when Daniel, a skeptical journalist with a penchant for debunking paranormal myths, arrived at the village. He had heard the stories of Blackwood Manor and, with a mixture of curiosity and arrogance, decided to uncover the truth. He believed there was always a logical explanation behind every ghost story, and he intended to prove it. Armed with his camera, notebook, and a flashlight, Daniel set off toward the manor. The villagers watched in silent horror as he disappeared into the fog, their warnings falling on deaf ears. The path to Blackwood Manor was overgrown and treacherous, the once grand entrance now reduced to a tangle of thorns and decaying wood. The manor loomed before him, a hulking shadow against the dark sky. Its windows were like empty eye sockets, and the wind howled through the broken shutters, creating an eerie symphony. Undeterred, Daniel pushed open the heavy, creaking door and stepped inside. The air was thick with dust and the scent of decay. His flashlight cast long, wavering shadows on the peeling wallpaper and crumbling furniture. The house seemed frozen in time, as if it had been abandoned in a hurry. Daniel moved from room to room, documenting the eerie stillness and the occasional skittering of rats. In the grand hall, he found an old portrait of the Blackwood family, their stern faces staring out from the past. There was something unsettling about their eyes, a lifelike quality that made him feel as if he was being watched. Shaking off the unease, Daniel continued his exploration. As the night wore on, the atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive. Daniel's skepticism began to waver as he heard faint whispers and footsteps echoing through the empty halls. He dismissed them as the wind or his imagination, but a nagging doubt gnawed at his mind. The air was thick with dust and the scent of decay. His flashlight cast long, wavering shadows on the peeling wallpaper and crumbling furniture. The house seemed frozen in time, as if it had been abandoned in a hurry. Daniel moved from room to room, documenting the eerie stillness and the occasional skittering of rats. In the grand hall, he found an old portrait of the Blackwood family, their stern faces staring out from the past. There was something unsettling about their eyes, a lifelike quality that made him feel as if he was being watched. Shaking off the unease, Daniel continued his exploration. As the night wore on, the atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive. Daniel's skepticism began to waver as he heard faint whispers and footsteps echoing through the empty halls. He dismissed them as the wind or his imagination, but a nagging doubt gnawed at his mind. There, standing in the doorway, was a figure draped in shadow. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and its mouth twisted into a grotesque smile. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest as the figure moved closer, its form flickering like a distorted nightmare. Desperately, he stumbled backward, his flashlight flickering and dying. The room plunged into darkness, and the whispers grew louder, more insistent. He could feel the presence all around him, closing in, suffocating him. In a blind panic, Daniel bolted from the library, crashing through the halls in search of an exit. The manor seemed to come alive, its walls shifting and closing in on him. He could hear the ghostly laughter of the Blackwood family, their voices echoing in his ears. Finally, he burst through a door and found himself in the grand hall once more. The front door was just ahead, but it felt like a mile away. As he ran, he glanced at the portrait of the Blackwood family. Their eyes seemed to follow him, their smiles growing wider and more sinister. With a final desperate push, he reached the door and threw it open. The cold night air hit him like a slap, and he stumbled out into the mist. The whispers and laughter faded behind him, but the terror remained. Daniel didn't stop running until he reached the village. The villagers were waiting, their faces pale and fearful. They knew he had seen something that could never be explained away by logic or skepticism. Breathless and trembling, Daniel recounted his experience, but the words felt hollow and inadequate. The villagers listened, their expressions grim. They had warned him, but some things had to be experienced to be believed. As dawn broke, Daniel left the village, vowing never to return. The story of Blackwood Manor had changed him, shaken his faith in the rational world. He knew now that some mysteries were best left unsolved, and some doors were best left unopened. Blackwood Manor stood silent and brooding, its secrets locked away in the shadows. The mist curled around it like a shroud, and the whispers of the past echoed through its empty halls. The legend of Blackwood Manor lived on, a chilling reminder that some horrors could never be forgotten, and some spirits could never be laid to rest. Thank you for joining us for another chilling tale on Nightmare for Giggles. We hope you enjoyed the story and that it brought a shiver down your spine. Before you go to bed, remember to check under your bed and keep your nightlight on, just in case. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a nightmarish story. Sweet dreams, if you can.